Hello. I would like to start by thanking the Economist Group team for taking part in this event with and us. It is great to have you guys here today. We will talk about innovating with integrity, how publishers need to change the way they work in the digital world. But first, let's introduce ourselves. Tristan is the head of digital product and delivery client solutions at the Economist Group. I am design lead at us and have been working on the design industry for over 15 years now. You can send us questions or comments via Twitter. It will be great to interact with you all. Now, bringing us back to our theme and how we started collaborating. How can we innovate with integrity? How do we find the time? Is it possible to do it in a fast but structured way? The answer lies in working on how the teams work to free them up to think creatively. We knew if we could free up the teams to have those big ideas and creative freedoms, they would be able to focus on the future and making the future. We also knew there were a lot of systems and processes that were wasting time. We needed the teams working differently. And thus, the Economist Group worked to design experiments that would make the advertiser content better. With that said, I'll pass it on to Tristan.
Thanks very much for that, Carol. Now, as Carol says, my colleague Elsa, who's speaking with me today, and myself work for the Economist Group. And we thought it would make sense to start with a video that introduces some of the work that we do. So I'm going to start off with that. So I hope that video provides a good, but if anyone has any questions, as Carol said, on that or anything else that we talk about, do feel free to get in touch and ask questions on Twitter, and we'll do our best to answer. So over to what we'd like to share with you today, which is our take on what publishers can do to innovate with integrity. We'll share some work that we did recently with an internal team, including product managers, developers, and designers, working alongside Carol and the team at Us. And the work in question was the kickoff for a web component library project that was designed to fundamentally change how we deliver website builds in a flexible and scalable way. We also thought this was a good opportunity to share some principles that have helped us to innovate and that you may be able to take away and apply to your own organization. It's worth calling out a few examples of the most common blockers to innovating on your product or service offering. A lot of the principles we follow aim to prevent these challenges from affecting our work. There's, of course, silos that can easily develop across any organization, and breaking out of them is key for innovation. Then there's the sheer amount of work in progress and constraints on capacity that you can see in any organization that can make creating the space for innovation and making it a core part of your team's mission appear quite challenging. And finally, there's a challenge that we see as specific to client project work, even long-term engagements with clients. And that's what we think of as horizontal scaling. So that's where complexity develops not from one individual product, but the aggregate of products and projects with many different use cases over the course of several years, potentially. And without careful management, this can lead to technical debt, design consistency issues, static ways of working, and challenges in introducing innovation that actually makes sense with what's come before. So we've spoken a bit about the challenges that teams can face, and we wanted to share some ways that we're working to enable innovation. We think trust is the key component in building with integrity. So as the graphic on this slide shows, trust in business is increasingly hard-earned, and far from being a lofty and abstract ideal, it's actually essential in very practical terms for innovation to take place. And we see three distinct groups that we need to build trust with, each in different ways. Clearly, it's the people that engage with the digital experiences we create and offering them content that offers value and respects their time and privacy. Of course, it's offering clients value and flexibility in a unique perspective. But equally, it's also for internal teams, something that's sometimes forgotten, giving them the autonomy to pull at new threads where the value might not necessarily be immediately clear, and providing them support from subject matter experts wherever they need it, and also critically, the space to fail and learn from that failure. So we see kind of trust and transparent communication that fuels that trust is the key to allowing your team to innovate with integrity. So that ties in well with how we can connect with other communities of practice inside and outside our organization. So from Renaissance Florence to Silicon Valley, there's lots of evidence of the impact of clusters of people that are taking on similar challenges and learning from each other and building on each other's successes. And even at a smaller scale, we've seen a lot of benefits from connecting with other teams that are working on similar challenges. So inside the company, for example, it's teams who've created component libraries for other use cases, but it's also specialist subject matter experts in quality assurance, product development, and infrastructure that we've been able to learn from, we've been able to course correct and kind of expand our team's horizons. And outside the company, we've seen huge value from engaging with open source software communities around the technologies that we're using. And of course, our design and development partners who've helped fuel our understanding of new technologies and ways of working. And all of that's helped to really inform our strategy. So we really believe that engaging with and identifying communities of practice that are relevant to your business is a low risk and high reward way to get started with innovation. So looking at kind of insights and automation. So there's a tendency to think of innovation as being made up of eureka moments during brainstorms. We've learned that doing the hard work to build strong foundations first is actually one of the biggest enablers of innovation. So that kind of background work that enables. So to give some concrete examples of what we actually mean by those sorts of foundations, insights that are built on qualitative and quantitative data sets that allow you to understand where your team and product are now, where there are gaps, and also to measure the impact of new initiatives are critical. The sorts of data that help fuel this project, for example, were the frequency of usage for different components across numerous builds, campaign performance data, qualitative inputs from a broad range of people, and then market research and resourcing data. So really quite granular and focused data sets that helped us identify firstly the need to do this work and also some pointers for tackling it. We also think systems and automation can provide opportunities for innovation. So an internal peer shared with us the idea of having defaults rather than rules for our workflows. Sounds like a subtle distinction, but actually setting defaults for our project workflow really helped us streamline, but it meant we didn't lose the flexibility that we needed because we kept them as defaults rather than fixed rules. Going a step beyond that, identifying repetitive tasks in your workflow that you can automate can really help. So a practical example we found effective was automating code deployments and a lot of the software quality assurance tests that we run. And that's helped give our team time back to focus in other areas. So really helping to address that challenge of work in progress. In terms of design and development partners, we've made a really concerted effort to work with specialist partners that have direct experience in what we're doing and that empower our teams by working with them and not for them. And for us, that's a really critical distinction. It's hard to build long-term value if you're outsourcing all your innovation. And one practical way we've achieved this is having partners and in-house teams working on the same tools, the same technologies and workflows wherever we can, because that helps make resourcing, learning, and review of work kind of more flexible between the teams and a lot smoother. And finally, one of the hardest things, having done that innovative work, is kind of folding the learnings and the new capabilities into your setup over the longer term. We think there's a kind of tendency to underestimate the scale of that part of the job, which is partly why we favor more frequent experimentation and research projects in smaller increments. And we prefer that to kind of mammoth initiatives that are much harder to fold in. Things that can help are defining success criteria before the work starts and a consistent set of metrics that you can use across projects, as long as you're open to updating both of those based on new evidence as it emerges over time. So I hope we've given some practical insight into the journey that we've been on and how publishers can innovate with integrity. I think a lot of the approaches I've shared focus on that foundational work, but they don't just apply to new teams or projects. There's no wrong time or place to start small and build from there. So with that all said, I'm going to hand over to Carol and Elsa, who are going to talk about the work that we did with And Us on the component library kickoff.
Thank you for that, Tristan. The Economist Group digital delivery team was spending too much time designing simple websites and wanted to focus their time on more interesting, complex, bespoke, and profitable work. So And Us worked with them to unlearn old ways, creating a design component library to enable quick and easy creation of simple websites and to improve collaboration as a design team using up-to-date tooling and ways of working. The key was to use this experiment to road test a new agile way of creating content and working with advertisers. Over just 1 month, we held collaborative sessions to help the team learn to adopt new ways of working and embrace an innovation as always-on frame of mind. We coached them on how to use new digital tools and create new items and maintain the library. We guided the team in taking ownership of new solution taking ownership of the new solution to make sure it is scalable and sustainable. The slide shows a few of the components created for the library. This was one small project of many, but what it did was open new conversations about how the Economist Group could better use their resources and time to focus more effectively on the future and ensuring it remains a loud, vivid, and productive media voice ongoing. With that said, I'll pass it over to Elsa that will talk about the impact and value created.
Thank you, Carol. So the starting point for our collaboration with And Us was to create a component library for our design system. This library will unify the visual language of our content, speed up process, reduce the workload of designers and developers. But the positive outcome of this workshop was much broader than this library production, and it also overspilled to other areas of our work. The teams moved towards an agile way of working, breaking up silos, promoting knowledge share, and joint efforts on design iterations. Also, tools before just reserved to the design and development teams are now part of stakeholders and client-facing conversations. Our creative process is now a fluid and iterative teamwork. Also, the production of simple digital deliveries moving towards, also with the production of simple digital deliverables moving towards automation, thanks to the component library, now we can focus our efforts on the development of more complex and innovative solutions for our clients.
So, what's next? The idea now is that we are exploring new ways of working in a fluid collaboration, working with agility and in an innovative and light way. The component library was just the start, but a great kickoff piece of work that helped change the ways of working that we'll continue to build up on. And because everybody loves a freebie, we're going to finish this up with the link for the and thus faster moving consumer goods exercise book, which is filled with insights, case studies, stories, and a new way to innovate. Enjoy, and thank you very much.